Hey Dominators, how are you? It's time for another video and let's start right into it. I will show you some of my recent multiplayer attacks, why I will give you some answers and my own opinions to some pretty interesting facts as well as commonly asked questions, and let's start with some attacks. Nope. Let's first start with the first fact, and it is about mercenaries. If you're going to your inventory, and in the inventory you're going to battle, you can see, and probably most of you will have from recent video rewards, you can just click at the left corner, over here, left top corner, you can see some mercenaries you can recruit, such as the 2K12 Cup, or even better, the heavy tank destroyers. And those are obviously mercenaries which most of you are not able to recruit ordinary. So I'm in the Cold War age and I only have ordinary heavy tank destroyers and no, these over heavy or heavy tank destroyers, which are one age later, one age above in the space age, can only be recruited 5 times, and then I don't have any more of them. But you can quite trig it out and recruit them, and if you are then only using those mercenaries, when you are afterwards retraining with the video, all of your mercenaries are getting cloned. So the mercenaries you previously had are getting automatically retrained. Now, my recommendation is recruit some of these heavy tank destroyers from over here, attack, and use them only in Worldwar attacks. When you are sure you have afterwards the video retrain function ready, then you can duplicate and clone them infinite times. For this, pretty smart hind, I have to thank Sandman again, which is a good friend of mine and a nice player who is providing me with some very, very essential informations, and we are doing some experiments together. So thank you for this, working this out together with me. And hopefully you got the point. Let's get right to the next point in my list. The next point at my list is about alliance challenges, so challenges within the alliance chat, and the effect of our museum artifacts. Many players probably have thought about, probably they don't have thought about, and there are some pretty spectacular rumors about whether artifacts are affecting our alliance challenges or whether they are not. So previously, I also thought the same for me, and I could not be certain whether they are affecting or whether they are not affecting our alliance challenges. Therefore, I did some experiments, and I have also a video proof for you so that no one needs to believe me just without any proof. I will show it to you after this attack. But I can definitely already promise to you that, which is pretty logical and intuitive, all of your World War museum artifacts will affect your World War bases you are getting as Alliance Challenge online. And so also all of your multiplayer artifacts are affecting the multiplayer bases you are putting online. So you can make Alliance Challenges pretty much harder, pretty much easier. You can switch artifacts to make it harder or even others for players to attack you if you have them in your alliance challenges. And this is a pretty cool method to vary or to alternate with the mode of difficulty for other players to attack your base, which are in the same alliance like you and which probably want to train at your base. So let's speed this up. Yeah, perfect. Now here we have one video of proof. So first we have the artifact in the background. I will post a World War base. So I am here in my World War museum, and in this World War museum I will now deactivate one of my artifacts, which is decreasing enemy tower hit points. So enemy defensive tower hit points by about 10%. So I will attack my own base, so within the first attack, all of my towers will not have decreased hit points. So they will have ordinary hit points, or nearly ordinary hit points, in comparison to the second attack. Here is the second artifact I will deactivate, and this means about minus 15% hit points. So again, these minus 15% hit points will not work within the first attack, but within the second. Here we have, I will now, after deactivating the artifacts, post a World War base layout from myself. And now attacking this World War base layout, and let's remind ourselves, here we don't have the decrease of hit points. So I need one strife. It is one attack with two strifes. Second strife within the first attack. Third strife of one plane in the second attack. Fourth strife in the second attack. Fifth strife in the third attack. And the sixth strife in the third attack. And now I need a fourth attack and the seventh strife to get with one plane, one tower down. Now I'm within my museum and I am activating my World War artifacts. So enemy towers are getting minus 25% of hit points. Now I will attack my own base again, and most obviously my defense buildings now should have decreased hit points by about 25%, so 1/4 of their ordinary hit points. So we have the same tower, the same plane. Also Teutonic Fury is active. We have the first attack, second strife. Second attack, third strife. Second attack, fourth strife, and the tower is already nearly down. Third attack, first strife. And now with the third attack and the sixth strife, the tower is down. In the previous attack, I needed about 7 strifes. Let's come to my 2.3 at my agenda, and I will give a short recommendation for a World Wonder. I'm talking about the Pentagon World Wonder. Initially, I was not that much confident about this World Wonder. I was pretty much hesitating and thinking about whether taking another. But now, after getting the last implementation and the ability to train 8 fucking planes within the Cold War age, and also within the Atomic Age, we have a lot of air unit capacity. And this will last forever if you have to retrain them because you're an active player and they are dying often. Now, if you are similarly or like me, not willing to pay a lot of crowns for retraining them, and also don't want to wait for a long time, you can just build the Pentagon and you get minus 20% to all air units training time, because there are air units trainings blessings, but for example I still have 63 of ordinary training blessings, but for my air units I only do have 3, so they are pretty rare, and I think most of you will have not a lot of them. So the Pentagon is an easy method for active players of you, where the planes are endangered to die more often than to inactive players, to get them retrained fast and loot pretty faster again than if you would have another World Wonder. So the pre-last point at my list is about a discussion which I had with a German but also with an English-speaking player, and there was the assumption, or there was a statement of myself where I said, or where I supposed, that leveling walls, like you can see in the background, we have an Atomic Age player and the walls are already maxed out. And my assumption or my statement was that leveling walls got pretty much easier than in former times, so approximately 2 or even 3 years ago, and therefore leveling walls is less harder than previously, or than in former times, and also it deserves not the same amount of respect, because struggling for walls ended. It is not struggling anymore for walls. Leveling walls is also for players which are playing pretty much more inactive. Now let's come to 4 aspects why I am supposing, or why I am giving out this statement. First, we have the victory reward. If you are attacking an enemy base, basing at your own age and at the enemy age. So the relation between, if you are the same age, it's a 1-to-1 relation, and if you are above the enemy base from age, you will get less loot, and if you are below the enemy age with your own age, then you will get more loot. So if you are, let's do only an example. I'm Cold War age. When I'm attacking a space age player, the space age player will give me, when I get or acquire 5 stars at his base, approximately 750,000 extra. So additional gold to all of the gold I will loot when I get the base. Same for food, and approximately 10,000 bonus for oil. So the amounts of oil and resources in total have totally increased because there are additional amounts of resources which we can obtain simply by the victory reward, which got implemented later. In former times, so 2 or 3 years ago, we did not have this. Also, the more or the longer DomiNations is active, the more players starting to play, and some when, I don't know why and I don't know when, stopping playing and letting their accounts inactive. Those inactive accounts are, those ghost accounts are just swimming around within the pool of all accounts, and they are getting looted and looted and looted. So traps are triggered, pretty much easier to attack. No generals, even still easier to attack. No town center defenders and generals, and yeah, over here. So perfectly the example which was not intended, but we have an attack in the background where you can see a completely inactive base. It's atomic age, only level 180. Most defenses are pretty underleveled. Complete all defenses are, all traps are triggered. No defenders anywhere, no generals anywhere. The mills and market storage buildings are completely empty. Resource buildings, so the productions buildings have all of the resources. It's easy to loot, have a high loot amounts. And those bases get more and more the older DomiNations is, because they are not getting deleted, which is pretty positive for all of us active players which are still playing, because if the peace treaty ends, those bases are getting free again. You can loot and loot and loot them infinite times. So the older DomiNations is, the more of the spaces we have. And previously, so 2 years ago, when I'm talking about where leveling walls was very, very hard compared to today, we had little bases, so less bases than currently. The third aspect is you can obtain tremendously more loot currently due to the museum mostly. So the bonuses and the amounts of loot you can get have increased by a high number so severely. I can only remember myself when I was global and atomic age, and I saw a base with about 600,000, 500,000 of loot. This was something like 1 in a month action or 1 in a month event, and I was absolutely happy and amazed, and I used my mercenaries and generals and anything just to get this loot because I was not used to get that much loot. Now, if I'm honest, 90% of all of my attacks are in total, in sum, more than even 1.5 million, sometimes even above 2 million gold and food combined. So I'm not lying to you. So let me give some proof to you. These are chronological, all of my attacks. You can see down below we have nearly 2 million of resources, 1.5 million of resources. This is slightly less, but nevertheless more than 1 million in total, over 2 million in total, over 1.3 million. I think my point is getting obvious. The attacks with approximately 1 million of loot, which would be incredible in former times 2 years ago, are now more something like ordinary events, and my resource reward from the museum is only about 40%. I heard about players having 70 or even 75% loot bonus, so their amount of loots from each battle is even huger than mine. Let's come to the last aspect, why getting or looting and therefore leveling walls is also some bases like this. I talked about inactive bases. Bases like this I nearly call also inactive because they're easy to raid. But the last part is wall sales or walls cost reductions. If we are talking why looting and leveling walls got easier, we can obtain about 10% cost reduction for all of our walls, which was not able before the university got implemented. And now the higher you come, the more expensive your walls are getting, and the more expensive your walls are, the more 10% reduction are. If you are paying around 11 million for your walls, you can save 1.1 million per piece. And here let's assume we have 140 pieces of wall. We have approximately 150 million resources you don't need to loot. And also in previous times, so years ago, you could only level walls with gold. So if we takes this into relation to another, and this is only a relation from my stomach, so I did not work it out or examine it to get specific values, but it should be right around a value 1 up to 4. So it should be 4 times easier or even more currently than 2 years ago to farm walls. Simply due to the fact that can use also food. It is only one of plenty aspects. If you can now use food and gold to level your walls, make it half as hard to level your walls because you have the double amount of resources you can use for your walls. So all of the other aspects are only adding up, and obviously I could argument and make it logical to you why I stated the statement that leveling walls is easier and therefore less to getting recognized and respected than approximately 1.5, 2, or even 3 years ago. So at least the last point at my agenda, I did already talk about bases which are easy to loot, so inactive bases or even sim spaces. Previously we saw a sim space, which I call sim space, so no offending over here, but it is simply a base where you have nearly all of the buildings, even those ones which are not worthy to protect, right within your walls, all around the town center, and then you have only one layer right around, like a fence, right around your complete base without any obvious structures, no good radar bonus from the streets. So it's a base of players who obviously did not put that much consideration into practicing or into building their base. In sum, I only wanted to say inactive bases and those sim spaces are easier to loot, and also it is pretty paradox, but those players seem to tend to level their production buildings pretty high. So farms and caravans are pretty high leveled, and therefore they ordinarily have a lot of resources to getting looted, and those bases are mostly accumulating at a specific medal value. So I'm in the in the Cold War age, and so I can get matchmake to Atomic Age bases and Cold War bases most of the time, but also to Space Age bases. But those inactive Atomic and even Cold War bases are mostly, if you are in the Cold War age, located at right around 1,800 medals. Also 1,900, 2,000 you can get them, also 1,600, 1,700, but 1,800 pretty sufficiently should be the mean of medals you should have to get the most efficient and the most economic place within the medal range where you can easily loot resources. If you are now in the Atomic Age, just reduce this by, let's say, 300, so stay at 1,500 medals and you get the most attractive bases. If you are in the Global Age, stay at approximately 1,200 medals. But I only wanted to say it's counterintuitive, so don't go as low as possible with your medals. Think about where are the most economic bases which I can raid without losing that much troops to get a lot of raids within a short period of time, and therefore make the most economic loot, whatever. So this was all about my video. If you are now interested, I will show one Worldwar attack to you, because I don't want to get above 20 minutes, otherwise I fear that my video is getting interrupted by my recording program. I will already say goodbye to you. We'll see us next time, and enjoy the Worldwar attack.